Wukong is one of the most well-known characters when it comes to mythologies. He has inspired many very famous characters, such as Goku from Dragon Ball. And it once took an entire army of gods to stop Wukong. He was that strong. But who is Wukong? How was he born? Did he become immortal 5 times? And how did he face Buddha himself? I'll tell you all this and more now. Guys, this video here took a lot of work to make. So I wanted to ask you guys to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel and share the video. And if you want and can help me even more, use the thanks button that is down there in the shape of a little heart, and you can donate any amount with it. And you can also become members of the channel here. Before chaos was divided, heaven and earth were one. When Pangu worked, he separated the clean from the impure. All beings that arose after that were moving towards humanity. After some time, the 3 powers emerged: heaven, earth, and man, each with its defined place. The 3 emperors put order in the world, and the 5 rulers established a moral code. The world was defined into 4 great continents: the eastern continent of Superior Body, the western continent of Taurus, the southern continent of Jambu, and the northern continent of Kuru. In the continent of Superior Body, beyond the seas, there is a country called Aulai, where everything began. There is a place there that is called the Mountain of Flowers and Fruits. That was supposedly where the pure and the impure had been separated. At the top of this mountain there was a magical stone. It received the blessings of the sky, the beauty of the earth, the essence of the sun, and the splendor of the moon. It had miraculous powers, and over time it produced an egg the size of a ball. And when the wind hit this egg, it left it in the form of a monkey with the 5 senses. The monkey began to walk, and when it opened its eyes, a beam of golden light shot towards the North Star Palace, and it frightened the supreme celestial sage, the Jade Emperor, who was sitting calm and surrounded by his ministers. When he saw this light, he asked 2 of his aides to investigate. These 2 had names that were quite strange, such as the 1,000-mile eye and the wind-following ear. They opened the south gate and looked and listened to everything. Then they returned to the emperor and told him everything that had happened, talking about the birth of the monkey. But since the emperor didn't think it was a big deal, he decided to let it go. Meanwhile, as time went by, the monkey evolved even more. He was already able to jump, climb, drink water from streams and springs, eat fruits, and so on. He made friends with other animals, and at night he slept on the rock. During the day, they ventured over the peaks and played with the other monkeys under the shadow of pine trees. And after these games, they bathed in a stream where a kind of waterfall fell thunderously. And the monkeys always wondered where so much water came from, so they decided to climb up and discover the source. When they got up there, they saw a large waterfall that looked like a curtain. So they made a challenge. Whoever was brave and smart enough to go through the water, discover the source, and come back quickly would become the king. The first to raise his hand was the stone monkey, and without much ado, he closed his eyes and jumped towards the waterfall. Then he opened his eyes and looked around. He didn't see any source, just a big bridge, so big it seemed like life itself. He took a breath, approached the bridge, and saw that it was made of iron. The water from there passed through a crack in the rocks and was filtered through the bridge. He approached it even closer and saw that it seemed to be a house. It was made of emerald moss stacked in mounds of blue clouds, as if it were a jade drifting from the skies. And inside this house there were beds, stoves, and everything else made of stone. And after a long look, he ran to the middle of the bridge and found a stone where it was written, "The Happy Land of the Mountain of Flowers and Fruits, Heavenly Cave of the Water Curtain." The monkey was very happy and ran off, closed his eyes, and jumped again into the waterfall. Upon returning, he came out shouting that they were in luck. He said that there was in fact no water inside, but rather a beautiful house with rooms and much more made of stone. All of this was made by the sky and the earth, so everyone decided to move in there. After making the passage, everyone settled into their seats in their beds, and as promised, the stone monkey became their king. The Monkey King then divided the positions of his subjects, and everyone lived very well, with parties and banquets. But even so, the king did not feel very happy. He knew that one day all of this would end. They would grow old and weak, and one day he would die and lose everything he had achieved. One of his subjects said that only 3 classes of beings escape the jurisdiction of heaven and hell. And they were the Buddhas, the immortals, and the wise. And knowing that these 3 beings could be found in the world of men, in caves and magical places, the Monkey King decided to leave his kingdom and seek immortality with them. The next day, after another banquet, he climbed onto a raft and headed south of the Jambu continent. But after the start of his journey, a strong wind blows, and he ends up going to the northwest coast of the southern continent. Upon arriving there, he tests the water depth with a piece of wood and jumps to the land. There he saw humans fishing and collecting fruits. The monkey went up to them, making faces and jumping, which of course scared many people, who ran away and abandoned their nets and their baskets. But one of them didn't run fast enough. This one was grabbed by the monkey, who stole his clothes and put them on to look a bit more human. He then began to walk through the provinces, observing and learning all the behavior of men. And of course always asking about Buddhas, sages, and immortals, but he couldn't find any of them. He spent 8 years in the south of the Jambu continent, going through walls, counties, and everything else. When he reached the Great Western Ocean, he thought that perhaps the sages were on the other side. So he made another raft and traveled across the ocean until he reached the western continent of Taurus. There he found a very high and beautiful mountain, and without fear he climbed up to the Kume. As he admired the view, he heard a song. As the song was very beautiful and spoke about life and immortals. Wukong approached and realized it was a man cutting trees who was singing. He thought he had finally found the immortal. So he already introduced himself as a disciple, but the man said he was not an immortal, just a poor worker. And the song he was singing, he had learned from an immortal who lived near his hut. Of course, Wukong already asked where this address was, and the woodcutter replied that there was a cave in this mountain, which was called the Setting Moon and the 3 Stars. And in it lived an immortal named Patriarch Subhuti, and he had many disciples, and the cave was further south. When they arrived, the cave door was closed. While waiting for someone, the Monkey King climbed a tree, and he ate some fruits at a certain point. The doors opened, and the boy called for him, saying that the master warned him that someone out there needed his teachings very much. The Monkey King straightened up and followed the boy into the cave. And there was Subhuti sitting higher, and below him were some lesser immortals. The king bowed in reverence, but the immortal already said that before anything else, he needed to know the name and where he came from. The Monkey King said he came from a cave on the mountain of flowers and fruits, and already at this moment the immortal already told to take the monkey out of there, because he was lying. There was no way he could get there being from another continent. But luckily, Subhuti ended up accepting the Monkey King's explanation, but his name was still missing, which in fact, until then, he didn't have. Subhuti stopped, looked at his visitor, and said he would call him son. And he added, saying that for his followers he had 12 words, and one of them was Wu, which means awakening. And so the monkey would receive Wu in his name. So his name would be Sun Wukong, which means the monkey awakened to emptiness. During the time he stayed at this location, Wukong learned scriptures, meditation, among other things. But one day, the immortal came to Wukong and asked what path he wanted to follow. He offered several paths, including silence, Buddhism, and meditation. But none pleased Wukong, who wanted the path of immortality. Subhuti then approached Wukong, tapped his head 3 times, entered through the main door with his hands behind his back, and closed the door. This was actually a riddle. The 3 taps meant the 3rd clock, and the master's entrance through the main door with his hands behind his back meant that Wukong, at the right time, should enter through the back door and learn the way in secret. The Monkey King grasped everything. Wukong, during the night, went to the patriarch's room and was told the path to immortality. Learning magical things was the best way for this, as he should be careful with the 3 disasters. When he carried himself enough, a lightning bolt would try to take him. If he avoided it, he would live long. However, after 500 years, the sky would send a fire for him. To burn him, it was a hidden fire. And more time later, a monstrous wind would come that would crush all his bones. And these are the 3 disasters. So, he learned and practiced the 72 transformations and several other magics that we will probably never know. He also learned the cloud somersault technique, where with one jump he could travel 60,000 miles. With these skills, Wukong had already become immortal for the first time, thus being able to avoid disasters. He was doing very well as Subuti's disciple, but at a certain point the other students went to Wukong and asked him if it was true that he had learned the 72 transformations. He agreed, but his classmates wanted a demonstration. Unable to resist, Wukong asked what form they wanted him to take. They asked him to turn into a pine tree, and he did. But Subute had seen all of this, and Wukong ended up being expelled for wanting to show off too much. And besides being expelled, he should never tell anyone where he learned all these skills. Expelled by his own master, Wukong rode a cloud and went back to his home in the mountain of flowers and fruits. Upon arrival, he discovered a demon was abusing his people. A monkey revealed the demon resided in a northern den. The Monkey King jumped there. It didn't take long, and he found several smaller demons dancing in front of a hole. He told the demons to call their king, since he was mistreating his children who lived south of there. Upon hearing of the visit, the Demon King grabbed his armor and his sword and went to meet the monkey. Wukong, without much trouble, threw the demon's sword into the air, plucked the hairs from his body, and made several clones. One by one, he got rid of the lesser demons. And when he got to the king, Wukong punched him until he fell to the ground, and using his own sword, he split the crown in 2. With the battle over, Wukong freed the monkeys kidnapped by the demons and summoned a hurricane to take everyone back home. Upon arriving there, Wukong realized that his people needed weapons to defend themselves, so he went to a nearby kingdom, summoned a tremendous storm that caused the king and the soldiers who were there to flee. Wukong entered the arsenal, made more clones, they took the weapons, and returned to the mountain of flowers and fruits to give the weapons to the people. However, the Demon King's sword that Wukong had taken for himself was not enough for an immortal. He needed a weapon of his level. So, one of his advisors told him that in the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace, he should find a weapon at the level of a king, or rather, at the level of an immortal king. The palace was in a creek over the iron bridge. Wukong jumped there, cast a spell that parted the waters, and went inside. Incredibly, he wasn't swimming there. Instead, the waters were parting, creating a path for him. En route, Alguan's servant, the Eastern Sea Dragon, cautioned about the Monkey King's arrival. Upon reaching the palace, the Monkey King demanded a weapon from the dragon. However, everything they offered to Wukong, he refused. Basically, everything was too light for him. Even the heaviest weapon in the palace. Then they gave the idea to the dragon to take Wukong to a piece of iron that anchored the Milky Way. This piece of iron had been shining for a few days. As soon as Wukong got there and touched his hands on that post, it shrank in size, and when Wukong said it should be bigger, it grew in size. And so Wukong found his perfect weapon, the Ridge Gulbang. Besides the weapon, he also demanded armor from the dragon. At first, the dragon denied the request, saying he had nothing. But then Wukong said that if he didn't find a way to find armor for him, he would test his new weapon on the dragon's head. One detail is that the base weight of Wukong's weapon was 13,500 pounds. So Alguan had to call his brothers to give an armor to Wukong. Al-Shen, the South Sea Dragon, Al-Shun, the North Sea Dragon, and Al-Hun, the West Sea Dragon. After understanding the situation, each of them gave a piece of armor to Wukong. Al-Hun gave a suit of gold armor, Qin gave a golden helmet with purple phoenix wings, and Jun gave a pair of lotus root shoes that walked on clouds. After that, he apologized for the inconvenience and left. After returning, Wukong went visiting other kings around the mountain and threw several parties. At the last one of them, right after he decided who his generals would be, he lay down in the shade of a pine tree to sleep. And during sleep, 2 soldiers or underworld officials took Wukong and took him to the wall of the underworld, where it was written Yama's world of darkness. In this case, Yama is the lord of the underworld, but these soldiers were very unlucky that at this exact moment, Wukong woke up. He saw what was written on the wall and was furious. After all, he is an immortal. He is not supposed to be there. He took his staff that he had stored behind his ear, the size of a needle, increased its size, crushed the 2 soldiers, and began to destroy the entire underworld. All this happened until they went to warn the underworld kings about what was happening outside. When they went there, they called for Wukong and saw that a mistake had occurred, but Wukong didn't care. He was still very angry and demanded that they bring him the Book of Death and Life. When the book arrived, he not only erased his name, but also the names of all the other monkeys, thus becoming immortal for the second time. Then he returned to his world. However, as he had caused many problems, not only for the dragons, but also for the gods of the underworld, obviously this would not come cheap. The Jade Emperor received complaints about everything Wukong had done, and the idea was given to him to bring Wukong to the Celestial Kingdom and give him a minor position as a way to keep an eye on the Monkey King. The Jade Emperor agreed, so the Great White Planet descended to Wukong's realm and made a whole speech saying that the gods recognized him and wanted him in the celestial world. Wukong, true to his nature, accepted the job, which primarily involved tending to horses. And when he found out that his position was nothing special, he fled from the realm of the Jade Emperor and returned to his land. When he returned, he was there telling his subjects and guests the reason he had come back, that the Emperor had not given him the proper title. And then one of the guests said he was right to flee because the title he deserved was the Great Sage Equal to Heaven. And when Kong heard this, he liked the idea so much, he ordered them to take a cloth and write the Great Sage Equal to Heaven and tie it to a pole. And from that moment on, he should only be called that way. And you remember that sages are one of the classes that are immortal, don't you? Besides the immortal and Buddha, Wukong gave himself an immortal title, but it doesn't count yet. Meanwhile, in the Jade Palace, when the Emperor learned of Wukong's escape, he sent 2 soldiers to capture him by Heavenly King Li Jin and Prince Nesha. And with them also went the mighty miracle god. And this last one was the first to encounter Wukong. And by the name, you should already know that he is not weak, right? When he arrived at the mountain of flowers and fruits, he told the monkeys who were playing outside that they should call for Wukong. And if he surrendered, their lives would be spared. Wukong took his armor and Gubing's Uri and went outside while pointing to the cloth where it was written, "As wise as heaven," leaving the mighty miracle god extremely angry. But the celestial general was not a worthy relative for Wukong. When he tried to block his attack using his 2 axes, they were broken, and the god fled in disgrace. When the general returned to Legion and told what had happened, Prince Nexia stepped forward and said he would solve the problem himself. Nexia arrived claiming to be the son of the Celestial King, but Wukong was clear. Either he would give him the title of being as wise as the heavens, or he would attack the Jade Palace. Nexia transformed into a being with 3 heads and 6 arms, but Wukong assumed an exactly identical form. And it was a great battle that shook the earth and the mountains. And when Nexia's weapons turned into hundreds of thousands, Wukong did exactly the same. The battle was very even, until Wukong left his hairs behind. Nexia and his clone hit him squarely, making him retreat. The 3 gods returned to the sky and told everything that had happened. At that moment, the Great White Planet suggested giving the title of Celestial Sage to Wukong, a title that would be empty so that he would just return to the heavens and be under control. Again, the Great White Planet went to the mountain of flowers and fruits and invited Wukong to the Celestial Kingdom, promising him the longed-for title. Wukong jumped for joy and followed the deity. Only this time, the problem was another Wukong was not causing problems. But he had no function in heaven and just went from one side to the other, from star to star, without any work. So they decided to give him a purpose, to take care of the peach tree peaches that give longevity and immortality, and when Kong got there and saw the peaches, he ate some, becoming immortal for the third time. In this case, I'm not counting him receiving the title of sage, okay? Because as the White Planet itself said, it's an empty title. While Kong was on his immortality diet, the Jade Pool's Queen Mother decided to throw a banquet. Only in this case, this banquet was of immortality things, and the two main things were the divine liquor and the peaches of youth. So she called some fairies to go get these peaches, and arriving at the garden, the fairies saw that there were missing peaches. When Wukong woke up, he asked the fairies why they wanted the peaches. They replied that it was for a banquet for great guests, like bodhisattvas, monks, and the Buddha. When the Monkey King realized that he had not been invited, he was very upset about it. He paralyzed the fairies with a spoken spell and went to see the so-called banquet. On the way, he found the barefoot monk and approached him and said that he was sent by the queen, warning that the party location had changed. The monk asked if it wouldn't be at the Jade Pool, as it always was, but Wukong, as soon as he knew the party location, he went there. Upon arrival, he found only the liquor, which he drank, becoming immortal for the fourth time. He also took some of that liquor and took it with him, and since he knew he had committed some crimes, he decided to return to his kingdom. But as he was a bit drunk, he took the wrong path and ended up going to the Tushita Palace, the place of Laozi, and there he found the pills of immortality. And of course he took some, becoming immortal for the fifth time. After that, he left the celestial kingdom and returned to the mountain of flowers and fruits and gave liquor to his people. With the damage discovered and Wukong back to his kingdom, the Jade Emperor wanted the Monkey King captured alive, or alive because dead wouldn't be. The Celestial King Li and Prince Nexa summoned an entire army of gods to go against Wukong. There were many, but in summary, it can be said that there were 28 constellations of gods, plus the constellations of the east and west, the 5 deities of the mountains, the 4 of the rivers, the 5 celestial deities, and many, many others. There was even Hao and Ketu from Hinduism, but Wukong's army and Wukong himself, of course, were almost unstoppable. A group of deities called the Nine Brights burst the gate of the monkey house, but Wukong, with a gigantic staff strike, defeated the 9. The 28 constellations and other gods faced some of Wukong's troops, who had some generals captured. Nexia and the 5 celestials, who were fighting against Wukong, were forced to retreat when he used his clones. At the Jade Emperor's palace, the Bodhisattva arrived and he learned about the war and sent his disciple down there to see everything that was happening. The disciple faced Wukong after falling, but was inevitably defeated. When he returned to the heavens, he gave a tip to the emperor. He should call the god Erlang to deal with Wukong. Erlang went to battle with the 6 sworn brothers. When he arrived on the battlefield, he immediately challenged Wukong alone. The battle was relentless. At one point, the two became gigantic, which scared some of Wukong's soldiers. And the 6 jurors, taking advantage of what they saw, threw a stone at them. The soldiers ran away, and when Wukong saw this, he gave up the fight. And he also ran away. He transformed into several things, even a temple, but when he was cornered by Erlang, Shen, and the other gods, the Bodhisattva who was up there in the sky gave a little help by throwing a vase from above, which hit Wukong's head. Taking advantage of this, Erlang Shen's dog bit his legs, and he ended up being captured. The sentence, of course, would be death. However, nothing could hurt Wukong, not swords, powers, or even fire. So they decided to put him in the Great Furnace. But the only thing that happened to Wukong was that his eyes became completely yellow and bright. And after days in there, they opened the furnace to take a look. But Wukong kicked the door and knocked everyone down there and ran out with his staff. The gods tried to stop him, but there was no way. He seemed crazed. So the emperor decided to use his last card in the deck, called Buddha. Buddha, when he arrived, asked the gods to make way and introduced himself to Wukong, saying that his name was Sakai-i Muni, one of the various names of Siddhartha Gautama, the first Buddha. Wukong said he would not give up until he took the throne of the Jade Emperor, So Buddha made a proposal. If Wukong could jump out of his hand, the palace throne would be his. Wukong thought Buddha was crazy, but agreed. So he took a leap and landed on the edge of what he thought was the universe. There were 5 pillars there, and to prove where he had arrived, he wrote on one of the pillars, "The wise equal to heaven was here," and urinated on one of the pillars, then jumped back. Wukong laughed and demanded what was promised to him. However, Buddha said that he never left his hands and showed his fingers. On one of them was written, "As wise as the heavens was here." And also, in a way, they smelled like pee too. Wukong became desperate and threw it far away. But Buddha transformed his fingers into mountains and trapped Wukong under them, where he would remain trapped until he was found again. If you've watched the video up to this point, please leave a like there to show that you enjoyed it, and also subscribe there so you don't miss any video, all right? Thanks, bye, see you.